crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We've got a really interesting guest and quite a panel and a topic of conversation tonight that will just matter to so many of us, nursing home and how to make the right decisions along those lines. That's coming up. Before we do so, just some ground rules of how the show works. The show is only made better by your involvement and the ways you can be a part of the show tonight. That information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can call, text, email, get in touch with us. We would love that. Also, a couple of numbers that you're going to want to make note of. If you would like to text the show, you can do so at 205-670-1949 or toll free 844-529-8255. That's 844-LAW-TALK. You're going to want to remember that number for sure. And attorneys from Hollis, Wright are standing by live all throughout the program. That free, off-air, confidential conversation. It's a great opportunity for you. So at any point throughout the program tonight, if you'd like to get some free legal advice, you can give the firm a call, and they'd love to speak with you. Attorneys standing by live. Josh Wright is the managing partner of Hollis, Wright and leading our conversation tonight. Why do you guys make those attorneys? What's that about? What's the motivation there for you, those attorneys that are standing by live?
Well, you know, we like to be able to answer questions that someone may not have access to a lawyer normally during the week. So Sunday night's a great night to do it.
Right.
There are a lot of people that stay up, watch the news. We come on immediately after the news, and our goal and focus has really always been, since we started the show, to make sure that we're available to answer calls, texts, emails. We make it super easy.
Right.
I mean, there really is no way you can't get to us, right?
Right.
You can hit us up on Facebook and Twitter and you're going to get a response. And our goal is to try and respond to all the questions. And what we found is a lot of times people think that lawyers are intimidating a bit.
Right.
And so this is a laid-back environment to allow someone to ask a legal question if they've got one.
And tonight's subject matter is one that you guys probably get a bunch of questions about.
Well, there's no question. Perry Shuttlesworth, who not only is a personal friend of mine, but is a friend to our firm and has been for many years, is going to be doing a great show with us on nursing home. And the number of adults that are getting into nursing homes, and by the way, the demographic of the people sitting right here have parents that are at that age right now. It's a really important topic, and it's a personal topic for me and many of us. And so we're going to be talking about some interesting things today, and Perry's done a great job in getting the production material together. We're going to be talking about, you know, how to pick the right nursing home, what rules and guidelines are in place to protect people, what to look for to make sure that someone, if they have gone through some level of abuse or lack of care, how to protect your loved one in that circumstance. So first of all, Perry, thank you for being on.
My pleasure.
Really, really appreciate you coming on to talk about this. How did you, I mean, I want to learn a little bit about your practice and let you talk a little bit about your practice, but how did you get into this area of the law? Because it's not everybody does nursing home litigation. It takes a big heart for someone to jump into this litigation.
Yeah, well, it's something that I've been doing probably the last 10 to 15 years. It's taken the majority of my time. I started out as a corporate and securities transactional lawyer, and then ended up doing litigation, lots of different types of litigation. But about 10 or 15 years ago, really started looking around. I'd gotten some cases here and there over the years involving nursing home neglect and abuse, and I really enjoyed working for these people. You know, my experience with the industry that it had many problems, and there were a lot of bad outcomes happening that really no one was doing anything about. And part of it was at that point in time, because of arbitration, it had basically scared away a lot of lawyers from handling these cases because of the difficulties associated with that. But I just had a real passion for it and decided that I was going to go ahead and really devote more of my time and energy towards it. And it's been a good decision for me.
Have you seen the issue of arbitration change over the last decade? Is it as prevalent as it used to be? I feel like there's less arbitration in cases now than there used to be, and maybe I've just misassessed that, but I just don't see as many arbitration cases.
Well, you know, I think in some respects that it has along the lines of what you're saying, because I think people are a little more aware of arbitration than they used to be, because it's been a topic of conversation. The New York Times did about 5 years ago a pretty extensive really series of articles about arbitration that we actually contributed some interviews to. And, you know, the word has just gotten out about the problems associated with it. It's been taken up by Congress, you know, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. So I think it's more on people's mind, and because of that, I think people are more likely to question the signing of one of these agreements than they used to be. So, you know, most of our cases still end up there, but I think that we have more cases that stay in circuit court than we used to, and I think it's because the public is slowly but surely becoming more educated about really the unfairness of arbitration for the individuals.
So Perry, let's start from where I see the beginning of this. I know your role as a lawyer is not just in litigation. I know there are times that you're advising people on things to look for to make sure they're picking the right nursing home. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so there's probably a prefatory question before that, which is, why do you need a nursing home? And there are three types of residents that go into nursing homes. If you have a loved one that is coming out of a surgery, for example, a hip replacement, or it could be any other type of medical problem that required them to get acute care, they'll go there for rehab, typically 21 days, could be longer. There's something called respite care, where if you've got someone who is being cared for at home and the family just needs a break, then they can go 3 to 5 days into a facility to give the family time to rest. The other is long-term care, what we typically think of as nursing home residents. And so, you know, those things should be taken into account, and you should explore, first of all, when you're looking at a facility, talk to them, talk to the administrator, talk to the director of nursing about their rehabilitation program, about their respite care. How are they going to ensure that in these shorter term stays, for example, immediately they have a plan in place to care for this person? But once you kind of explore those issues related to the type of care or the reasons that your loved one is going, internet searches come up with a number of different rating systems, A Place for Mom, Caring Life. There's the CMS, which is Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, has a rating system. It's called the CMS 5-star system. You can go and determine what CMS has to say about, you know, how many stars they were given, and that kind of relates to the resident outcomes. You know, those are good pieces of information to have. You can get the annual survey, which is an investigation report, and read. That's available online to the public to see what types of problems were found by the Department of Public Health in their annual survey. Beyond that, though, once you identify something that's hopefully close to home so the family can get over there a lot and see them, one that has the services that you need, one that seems to have decent ratings and not too many deficiencies on a survey, you got, you know, go and narrow it down, go stomp around and talk to people, see how it feels, see if they, you know, the folks that you're talking to, the management, have a good plan in place for caring for your loved one. Look for bad odors, look for things that just seem out of place or not the type of environment that seems like a good, healthy environment for caring for these folks.
So I know we're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, I do want to talk about Perry about, all right, so now we found this location. Mm-hmm. We like the location. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you need to do to be vigilant and to make sure that your loved one's being cared for the way that the nursing home claimed they were going to do it from the start? All
right, time to step aside. We're taking our first break of the evening. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, The goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
We love helping people. I think everyone at this firm feels the exact same way, that the reason we do what we do is to help people. And this show gives us the biggest platform possible to help as many people as we can in the community.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Appreciate you being with us. Don't forget, attorneys from Hollis Wright standing by live to speak with you right now. Take advantage of that opportunity. We would love to have you join us. Also, before we get back to the conversation, if you're on social media, so is Hollis Wright on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even YouTube, Attorneys TV, so you can find it there. Plenty of opportunities and ways for you to interact with Hollis Wright. They are pretty much everywhere. So take advantage of those opportunities. A great educational and informational resource.
You make it sound like we've actually got someone that we hired, like Melissa Beatty, to handle all that stuff for us. She does a good job.
She does a fantastic job.
She does. She keeps us promoted out there and helps us answer questions consistently, whether it's through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. She does a great job. And super proud of her.
Really accessible.
No question.
That's what I love
no
about
question. All right. So Perry, when we went off, you did a great job of outlining some of the things to look for when you're trying to pick the right nursing home. Now, once a loved one, family member, friend is at a nursing home, what are some of the things that you recommend that they look for to make sure the person's treatment care is being properly handled?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's important to ask to see certain documentation. Most folks do not know that they're entitled to the documentation that lays out the plan of care. The sponsor or the primary contact should be involved in that process, but find out right off the bat what the care plan says and ask to see it. The care plan is the document that addresses every problem area that the resident, that your loved one has, and how it's supposed to be addressed. So, you arm yourself with that information. Spend as much time visiting and laying eyes on your loved one as you can. Talk to the nurses, talk to the CNAs. When you have a problem, go talk to the administrator or the director of nursing. Mix up the times that you go visit. And so, you need to be there a lot, and you need to arm yourself with the information that you're entitled to see what has been determined that your loved one needs every day. So now, then the question becomes, if something is out of order, if something seems incorrect or problematic, what do you do? Well, this is, to me, the most important piece, which is, when you go and let's say that your mom has altered mental status, weakness, lethargy, something is not quite right and you know that, and you go talk to the nurse or the charge nurse or the RN supervisor. And, from my experience, more often than not, that they tell you something like, Mom is just having a bad day, okay? Well, she might be having a bad day, but she also may be dehydrated and going into renal failure. She may be suffering from an infection, a number of things. So don't take their word for it. Don't take the word of the caregivers when you see a problem. Follow up and ensure that they actually are examining them, evaluating them, sending them out for a physician to see whatever it takes, in order to ensure that there isn't a problem.
That's great. Good advice. Important advice, too.
Yeah. Whenever you hear stories about nursing home neglect on the news, they're usually the most awful stories, and they're just terrible, tragic, and sad. Is there a common thread or lessons we can learn from those? Is there something that maybe the family could have done different, or some signs that you see that are consistent with places where our loved ones do not need to be?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything to be taken away from the stories that make the big headlines. You find stories about someone having, an insect invasion in parts of their body or something. So those type of big splash stories make the headlines. Day in and day out, you don't read about people having infected pressure sores and dehydration and renal failure, falling and having a head injury and so forth and so on. So I'm not sure that you can take away much from what you read about as far as the news stories, actually. But day in and day out, you should be aware, I think, of the most common problems that you're likely to encounter, which I've just mentioned a few. Dehydration and renal failure. It's the most basic thing in the world, making sure that a person who can't take care of themselves gets enough fluid, making sure that they get turned and repositioned, they don't have excessive pressure on a part of their body and have a pressure sore, which are almost always avoidable. Making sure that if they need help with ambulation and walking, that they're getting it versus just letting them go around the facility and not attending to the level of care and assistance they need, which can cause falls, fractures, and lots of bad injuries.
It's interesting. I'll never forget when I was a young lawyer, I had someone ask me one time in a deposition, well, if she had a problem with the care that she was receiving, she could have spoken up to any of her family members that were coming to visit her. And the person that made that comment did not recognize that the lady that I represented through her family had had a stroke and was unable to communicate. Wow. So a lot of times what happens is you have to really be vigilant, not because the person cannot communicate, but because the person's not capable of advocating for themselves given advanced age, given medical conditions, etc. So I think what Perry is outlining is really, really well said, and that is you've got to be vigilant and careful to make sure that the care the person's getting is consistent with what was marketed to you there. One of the questions I would have, Perry, is this. When you're convinced that something's not right, what are the steps that you take from there to move forward? Do you go to the administrator first? I mean, what's your general recommendation?
Sure, and actually I drafted an ebook giving families, it's a guide for them to follow in that instance, which is available on my website. But basically, if you see something that seems out of order or problematic, you're entitled to the entire chart within 24 hours of a request. The nursing homes that I deal with typically will ignore that request, but don't let them. Ensure that you follow up and see the documents yourself so you can see, is there documentation that they've done a body audit to make sure they don't have pressure sores? Documentation they're getting enough fluid every day. So do that. But beyond that, I would ask immediately that they be seen by a physician, okay? I would ask that they be sent to the emergency room if there seems to be something that's a serious problem. Follow up and ensure that they are properly assessed, head to toe. Lab work is done, which would reveal dehydration or infection. Ask for a very extensive workup if your experience with this person, which vastly outweighs any other person at this facility, if your instincts are telling you that there's a problem, there may very well be. Follow up, make sure that there's a complete assessment done.
We're going to continue to unwrap that when we come back. And by the way, let me just say this. Anybody who wants a copy of that ebook, all they have to do is reach out to us at 844 Law Talk, text us. we will get you to the website to be able to get to that ebook so you can evaluate it for yourself if you're going through this. So we want to make sure we give Perry's contact out to make sure we're able to get them that if they need it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we're stepping aside. Our final break of the evening, just a few minutes remaining. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up. Stay with us.
I'm attorney Carter Clay with Hollis, Wright Law Firm. If you've ever been involved in a civil lawsuit or been a witness to an accident, then you may have been asked to give deposition testimony. In this week's Legal 411, we are answering the question, what is a deposition and why am I being asked to give one? Depositions involve the process of a person giving under oath testimony that is outside of court. The person giving deposition testimony is referred to as the deponent. Depositions are taken in the presence of a court reporter, and the court reporter records the testimony. After the deposition, the attorneys for the parties received a typed transcript that contains all the questions that were asked by the attorneys, as well as the answers given by the deponent. The purpose of taking depositions is to ensure that the attorneys for the parties have a full and complete understanding of the events giving rise to the lawsuit, as well as an understanding of the testimony that they can expect to hear from witnesses at trial. Another reason an attorney might want to get deposition testimony is that it allows the attorneys to better prepare for trial and to develop a strategy for presenting the case to a judge or a jury. At trial, the deposition testimony can be used in several ways. First, if a witness on the stand deviates from the deposition testimony, an attorney can use the deposition to impeach the witness. Also, if a witness forgets certain facts or events, the deposition can be used to refresh the witness's recollection. Finally, in some instances when a witness simply cannot attend trial, the trial judge has the authority to allow the deposition testimony to be read to the jury. If you are a party to a lawsuit and are requested to give deposition testimony, your attorney will likely spend a significant amount of time preparing you for the deposition process to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back. About 5 minutes remaining in the show, so if you want to speak with those attorneys that are standing by live, you've got less than 5 minutes to do so. Josh?
Hey, talk just a little bit about the litigation process. I know a lot of times, you know, these cases fall under the Medical Liability Act. I know they're in the arbitration context, but the evidence and the things that you've got to prove and the elements you've got to prove, a lot of times they require experts, don't they?
They do. The Alabama Medical Liability Act requires an expert to testify, a nursing expert, for example, to say that the nurse was negligent. A person, even if they're a physician or from any other field, cannot say that a nurse was negligent in giving nursing care. So you have to have a similarly situated expert to the witnesses that you claim, or the caregivers that you claim were negligent, give that evidence that they were negligent. And then we have to work with physicians typically in order to develop evidence that the failures or the negligence is what caused the injury or death, both of those things. So yeah, it's an expert-heavy type of litigation.
David, one of the things that I find fascinating about the nursing home litigation is a lot of times the physicians that are in the records and involved in caring for people at nursing homes are not actually employees of the nursing home. They are employees of a medical facility like a hospital that is responsible by contract for caring for people at that nursing home. So there's a reason you need to get legal counsel involved early and quick to assess who are the proper parties if there is going to be a suit, who is actually responsible, because a lot of times what I find is the doctor can give great information about the lack of care that happened at the nursing home. And so having the doctor on your side helps you. And let me just say this, and I know Perry would say the same thing. We're not saying every nursing home's doing it the wrong way. Perry would never say that, and I wouldn't say that either. There are a lot of incredible nursing homes out there. But if you find your loved one in a circumstance where they have been subject to some type of care that's less than what the standard would dictate, that's when you want to go to a lawyer like Perry and talk a little bit about what your options are, because I think it's super important.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to build a relationship, or at least attempt to build a relationship with those who are taking care of your loved one as best as you are able?
I think it's extremely important. I mean, like Josh was just saying, there's some, every nursing home has a lot of great nurses and great CNAs and a lot of good folks. And so developing relationships with these people, and so you can communicate openly, you can pick up the phone and call them. They can call you directly and talk about what's happening, I think is extremely important. And I would encourage everyone to try and develop these relationships with as many people as they can. Absolutely.
All right, we've got 2 minutes remaining. Just enough time for a final thought from the both of you. Covered a lot of ground, but Perry, if you would, you go first. Just a final charge for our viewers.
Sure. One thing that I would say is this. What leads to most of these cases is when someone has a change in their condition, which we all do. We're all on some level of decline. If there's a change in the condition of a person, one of your loved one at a nursing home, they need to have a corresponding change of care. And that's where things usually go poorly, is if the caregivers are not paying enough attention to when there's a change in the needs to meet it with a change in the care that's given. So be very aware if there's a change in condition, there has to be a corresponding change in care and treatment. But beyond that, if you experience, if your loved one experiences dehydration, pressure sores, falls with injuries, medication errors, choking, those are the most common problems that we see. If those things happen, they are typically avoidable with good care. And yes, you should reach out to a lawyer to at least find out if there is something that can be done to address it and to hold those accountable if it's appropriate. So you're not typically going to know as a family what was done on a day-to-day basis, but these outcomes are typically not going to happen in the absence of negligence.
Yeah, so, the one thing I'd say quickly, really well said by Perry there. The way I look at it is this: nursing home care is not cookie cutter care, where you do the same thing for each person. As circumstances decline, naturally as people get older, they'll decline, but you want to make sure that you're at a facility that's going to manage that, monitor it, and realize that they need to adjust the care as needed.
Really helpful
Great job.
information.
Thank you.
Great job.
Great job.
To you.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
for joining us as well. As always, we'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.